Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Needs Some Introduction. I have Darren back again on the podcast.
G'day.
And today we are going to be primarily discussing the first three episodes of Andor, maybe a little bit more. I have watched a little more than the first three, but maybe we just time box it to those three, considering the pacing of the release of this show. Maybe we say that for the conversation, but it could have been a little slower. This is dense. This is dense. So this could have been a little bit slower. I probably would have preferred give us a little more breathing room for our conversation. And I really enjoyed this so far. So I'm curious. I may very well have a episode by episode breakdown that I might publish as part of our follow-up conversation next week. But for today, we'll try to cover as much as what we've watched so far. This incredibly successful, at least artistically, I think commercially, maybe not so much, but artistically, hugely successful Star Wars. One of the best, maybe if not the best thing that has come out of the Star Wars universe ever, possibly. And really fascinating series, and back for a second season. But before that, I am going to give you a rundown, Darren, of what's coming out in May, and of course the audience in general.
Good. I've been waiting for this.
A little May preview, and many things coming out. So just a list of things that have piqued my curiosity, and see which ones of these you're curious about yourself. We will need to talk about something after Andor wraps up, of course. And but before all of that, I talked a little bit about my trip. I was very curious, Darren, that you and your family went on a camping trip for about 10 days, I believe. And you did the whole White Lotus disconnecting your, giving your phones to an Australian. I don't know if you had an Australian Sherpa with you carrying your bag, your devices with you. But tell me about your trip and how it went.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Look, we didn't camp for a whole 10 days. The first few days we went, my parents live a couple of hours down south. So we went to reconnect with them and check it out, and kind of wean the kids off a little bit of their devices. Nice. And that worked really well. And that was over Easter. And so we did the family thing, and then did a bit of exploring of the coast around there. They live in a place that's quite near a lot of holiday places within 45 minutes drive. So there was some cool things that we hadn't seen, free things that we hadn't seen, there's this crazy rock kind of inlet where the wave, but it's protected, so the waves come in and go over the rocks and then create like this natural spa, almost this natural spa bath in the ocean. And yeah, the kids were all about that. I'd seen it before, but I wanted to take them just to see how they took to it. And they just love climbing over the rocks and the cliffs. And I'm sure it's dangerous, but I just couldn't stop them doing it. And then we went proper camping, which we haven't been for about a year or so. So it was good to get back into it. And I bought some new kit. I bought a new shelter, and we went with another family. So their kids played with ours, and there was no injuries, which was the main thing. That all I want out of camping. No broken
bones. That's fantastic.
And yeah, the devices worked really well. I didn't get hounded. They met new friends, and we did have my oldest daughter. We did send her off with a phone because they were gone for most of the day. They would swim, and they would swim across the river and then explore like this other kind of world for them, where there was no buildings and nothing. It was just basically plain bush. And then they'd come back when they were hungry, and so we had a phone in case of emergency. But it was very successful. Apart from the sleeping situation, I need to upgrade my mattresses next time, because yeah, some pretty rough nights sleeping. But we got all weather as well, so hot. It was about 30 degrees in Celsius. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but it was nice and warm. And then we got a bit of rain, a bit of wind, so it all held up pretty well. So yeah, we'll be doing it again soon, I think.
Wow, that's great. I used to go camping every year. The terrain is very different here, I would assume, very forested rather than where you we're probably camping. I'm curious about that. Is that considered? Would it be considered the outback, or how deep did you go into the
Yeah, not
outback?
that far. No, we didn't go that deep. It was only a couple of hours out of the city, so
Okay.
definitely not. The outback, where I think of it, it's really not near the coast, or at
Mhm.
least it's mainly desert. If you go far up in Western Australia, then you get the desert where the desert meets the cliffs, meets the sea, and that's pretty remote. But yeah, we're not doing that just yet.
That's a little aggressive, right? I would love to go I've had friends who've gone camping in the desert here in the US, and they just bring back the most incredible night shots of the sky.
Mm.
And I'd assume it's probably pretty similar out there as well. But I'd love to do that
And
sometime.
just the stars. I mean, just the first night we were
Yeah.
out there, you actually see the stars and you see
Right.
the
Hmm.
Milky Way, and it's
Yeah.
just such a shock because you don't see that every day. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's yeah, very eye-opening.
Yeah, I remember going to when I was younger, going to visit my grandparents in Portugal, and they lived up in the mountains. And just because there was just no incidental light, literally seeing the Milky Way, like you described, you could actually see the shape of the Milky Way, and it was just such a shock because I grew up in a city here in the U.S. and there was no there was no sky. You can only see a handful of stars and the moon, and seeing just those thousands, millions of stars was just jaw dropping. And even there where they live, same location now, when I go and visit, it's still not the same sky anymore because there's so much more light and light pollution in general. So
Mm.
need to get away from it all again. My daughter's maybe a little bit older, but I very much am looking forward to that. I used to go camping every year to kind of get away from it and have no devices and write, oftentimes just to, you know, I would be able to write when I was able to be bored, which is so hard. I was telling my wife
Yes.
this, that in the olden days, I used to be able to be creative because I would get bored and then I wanted to be creative. But now, because of our phones, it's impossible to ever be bored. So you can't really
Mm.
have downtime to contemplate, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just enjoyed reading and just having the time to
Yes,
read.
I love that
Yeah,
too.
which
Hmm.
was
Yeah,
was very relaxing. Yeah.
especially when I'm away from it all. All right, let's kick things off
Oof.
with our preview of things that are coming. First of all, I'm going to start things off May 1st. This is coming tomorrow. I guess I'm publishing this on May 1st. So everybody today, as you're hearing this, that this is one of my most anticipated shows of the entire year. It's not something that I think gets headlines or whatever, but it is an incredible show. And Darren, I think you'd like this if you are familiar with it. You may already have watched it, which is 100-Foot Wave. Have you watched this?
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, I watched the first season. Yeah, which was based in Nazaré in Portugal.
In Portugal, correct? And actually, there's two seasons. If you haven't seen season two, I highly recommend season two. It's such a huge upgrade in production. It takes place during the pandemic. Is that the one you watched by chance?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so you probably saw season one and season two. Season one is like takes it's like spans about 10 years as this becomes a thing. Season two was specifically when this has become an annual event, and it covers, I think, 2 years in the uh, contest, which span the actual. They canceled it one year because of the pandemic, and then the following year. Well, this is the subsequent year. Apparently, something tragic happened during this making of
Mm.
this particular episode season of the show. And it comes back next week, and it goes week to week. It's on HBO or Max as you would watch it. And I recommend this to everybody, and everybody I know. I mean, I recommend this to everybody, even something to watch with your kids, as long as they don't mind that there's a lot of expletives when people go crashing into rocks or something or fall off their boards. But other than those kind of expletives, even this is relatively family friendly show. And I like just the idea of someone just being really passionate about something and maybe a little crazy. And I'm always fascinated by athletes and who are sometimes don't even understand what drives them to pursue a particular obsession, or anybody for that matter. And it's just incredible visuals, just stunningly beautiful photography. So first, you could just put it on as something to have in the background, just as like a screensaver in the living room while you're hanging out. But I do recommend you check it out because these are really compelling characters as well in the show. So that comes back today or tomorrow as you're hearing this.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, as you know, I surf, but that level of of athleticism, and they do toe surfing as well. So
Hmm.
they have to get the speed up behind these skis to catch these waves, and it's just it's a level of technological innovation as well as the athleticism, and it's only a very select few guys that can do it, and you really have to specialize in that.
Yeah, I just like procedural stuff in general, even documentaries, and I just love the idea that these people are literally, well, I mean, they still are, but explicitly taking their lives in their hands in that first season, and how you see that they get better at it, and the technology evolves, and now it's really fascinating just to see that that once people
Mm.
all kind of coalesce on something, that they can fix it to a large extent. But like I said, I think something really catastrophic happens this particular season, so they didn't work out all the kinks apparently. Also, tomorrow, this is something that Sona's very much looking forward to. It's the Four Seasons. This comes from Tina Fey and a lot of the uh, behind the scenes talent from 30 Rock and an all star cast. And this is the story based on an old Alan Alda movie from 1981, believe it or not, that I kind of remember vaguely from when I was very young, but I don't think I've ever seen the movie. But it's an interesting premise. It is about six people, three couples who, over the course of 4 seasons, they go on 4 trips together, and you see them spend this year together. And one of the couples is falling apart. Their relationship is ending, and how it has this ripple effect on everybody else's relationships as well. So it's a comedy, but it's a dramedy, and very talented cast and writing behind the scenes as well. So I'm very curious about this. I will probably watch it because Sona is very excited about watching this. She likes all this interpersonal dynamic type story. So I'll be watching this, and we'll probably be covering it here in the podcast.
Yeah, cool. Well, I like people going on holidays. It seems a bit White Lotusy, so yeah, it
Exactly.
sounds cool.
Right there. Exactly. I think it dovetails with a lot of things we've touched on here already. Okay, 1 week later, May 8th, next Thursday, everybody. Poker Face is back. I love Poker Face. Ryan Johnson, who loves these kind of detective stories, apparently. And this is his Columbo style mystery of the week type anthology series, of course, starring Natasha Lyonne as some woman who has this literally, or it seems to be, a supernatural ability of knowing whenever anybody is lying. And she's absolutely never wrong. And how she just keeps picking at it when someone lies to her, and inevitably she keeps unraveling these murders wherever, any town this woman rolls into. Apparently, someone's been murdered. So, and she's on the run from the mob, and it's a very entertaining season one, a huge hit for Peacock, the first actual hit they ever had on that. And Peacock's become much more popular after the Olympics and after some recent hits like Dave the Jackal, which is now their most popular series. So this is probably poised to become a huge hit for them. And they have scaled up this all-star cast of these 12 episodes. There's 3 week 1, and then it goes week to week after that. These are just some of the people in here. Taylor Schilling, a little bit of a Orange is the New Black re-team up here. Cynthia Erivo, Katie Holmes, Kumail Nanjiani, Haley Joel Osment, Rhea Perlman, Carol Kane, BJ Novak, Aquafina, John Cho, Giancarlo Esposito, Melanie Linsky, Margot Martindale, Justin Theroux, Sam Richardson, I mean, John Mulaney. I'm just reading off names here. David Allen Greer, Method Man.
That is huge.
Yeah, just huge. Like basically just an all-star cast. So I mean, they already had a lot of, they'd have like one famous person each episode last year. Now it's just all-star cast from beginning to end. So I'm very much looking forward to this. I found season 1 very entertaining, and curious to see this one as well.
Sorry, I've never seen it, but
You never
you
have?
make a compelling case.
You
No?
should check it out. I think if you like Monk, and you like Psych, and you like Columbo, of course, if you like the quirky detective that always gets his man or woman at the end of the episode, you'll like this. It's a really good example of it, and very funny. Like Ryan Johnson writing most of the scripts, not all of them, but most of them. Very funny situations that she's in every week, and getting herself into trouble and out of trouble. A lot of fun. Yeah, unlike she's
I
not.
think he's brilliant. He's very different the way he does things. And he does do a Star Wars film, but
Oh yeah, let's not talk about that one.
I actually really like that one.
I did too. I know it's so controversial, but although I have significant problems with it as well. But I thought at its best, it's really good. May 13th, very curious for this one, on Netflix, a show that I just saw the trailer for. It does not seem to be what they described it as, but still curious to check it out. It's an anthology series from the comedian and podcaster John Segundo, I think his name is, that it is a combination of Black Mirror and improv comedy. So these are improv comedians that have a situation that they are enacting, and then they shape it into an episode of television. So I'm very curious for this experiment of it. And of course, a big fan of Black Mirror. You know, I'm more interested in the tagline than to see if they're actually successful at it or not. But we're curious to see that one. That's on May 13th. And then also on Netflix, May 15th, speaking of Black Mirror, Love, Death, and Robots, which is another anthology, which usually shows technology going badly. You have not sampled this yet, have you, Darren?
I've never seen it, but I saw, is David Fincher involved in it?
Yes, he's a producer on the show, and he has directed. You should see the episode he's directed. Is really, really well done.
Okay.
But I recommend the entire series. It's very uneven, extremely uneven, but there is probably, I'll probably have an episode where I have like a starter kit for the season. I think there's about 5 or 6 episodes that are absolute genius. And minimally, everybody should watch those 5 or 6 episodes because collectively, they are maybe 45 minutes long. So, I mean, you really should put in the work there. I mean, the entire, whatever number of episodes are up to now, because some of them are pretty short. Some of the Fincher episodes over half an hour long. It's one of the longest ones, but most of the other ones are 10, 15 minutes long. I think the entire season, if you wanted to watch everything up until this current season, would take you a little over 2 hours. So it's, you know, just suck it up and watch it. But it's very uneven. Like I told you, very uneven. But at its best, it's genius. Same day, May 15th. Have you seen this? They just dropped a full trailer for it. It's Duster from J.J. Abrams. Crow created this show with LaToya Morgan, who's one of the main writers on Shameless. And this is starring Josh Holloway, reunited with J.J. Abrams from Lost, from probably for the first time, I believe. And this is a new Max crime drama where he's a driver. It's one of these sun-baked noirs. It's, you know, rather than being a dark noir, it's a very sunny noir. But he's a driver, and he's involved in some criminal element. And it's set in like the 70s, I believe. So it is very much Drive, kind of like.
Oh, yeah, that was Gosling, wasn't it?
Right. That kind of throwback to desert noir. Although this seems to be a little more lighthearted, but definitely has its darkness to it as well. So I personally like this genre a lot. So I'm very curious to see what they come up with here.
Yeah, never even heard of it. So I'll check that out.
That's a new one for you to investigate. And like I said, I think they just dropped the trailer, the full trailer for it. They've been teasing it when I'm watching other HBO shows like during The White Lotus. But I think they had their first full trailer today. So check it out and see if you're curious about that one. Just 2 weeks away for that one. I think that's going to be one of the bigger shows of the summer, just with the, you know, the Abrams connection and all. On May 16th, Murderbot. Have you seen the trailer for this?
Oh, I love this trailer. Yeah. I think Apple showed me this trailer. I don't know what the show is going to be, but the trailer is really enjoyable. And it looks like it's got a good blend of comedy and sci-fi.
This is from the Weiss brothers, Chris and Paul Weiss, who did American Pie, of course, but they've done a lot of science fiction. They've done a lot of other things since then, but just to name something, they're probably their most famous. And,
I think one of them co-wrote Rogue One, or
he did one of the Star Wars films. I forget which one, but yes, it might have been Rogue One. You may be right. And features David Desmalchin, which of course had a breakout last year with Late Night with the Devil, right? It's terrific. And of course, this stars Alexander Skarsgård, another really fun lead character here. This is kind of like a RoboCop type story, which I love RoboCop, by the way, the original, not the remake. I have to say that the one thing that is a little off for me on this is usually when something's set like in the far future, like very sci-fi, rather than being more contemporary, like kind of like I'm more Black Mirror, let's say, that is like kind of an alternate present than I am like a real outlandish future. But still, I'm definitely going to check this one out. And if this is good, Darren, this might be our week to week once Andor wraps up.
Yeah, it looks like it could go either way. I really like the trailer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is my experience with Sci-Fi and Apple TV. Could go either way. It's kind of how it's gone. We'll see. We'll see how those first couple episodes feel. On May 21st, Nine Perfect Strangers is coming back for season 2. We did cover this show on the podcast. I wasn't a huge fan of season 1, but I do find season 2 an alpine set resort where people get high and get into trouble on this. Another one, it's very White Lotus adjacent again, so it might work for our audience. I'm skeptical, but we'll see. We'll see if it works out or not. But it is something we'll probably be sampling here. On May 23rd, Fountain of Youth is coming to Apple TV. For better or worse, Guy Ritchie has made this giant, his version, I guess, of National Treasure. John Krasinski and Natalie Portman, playing his sister, actually, are traversing the world looking for the Fountain of Youth. And this is an all-star cast with Domhnall Gleeson, Eiza Gonzalez, Stanley Tucci's in here as well. I'm always up for what Guy Ritchie's doing, so. But this may be a miss for him, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. These giant $300 million productions from Apple TV have not been that successful recently. But
I'm always skeptical about these giant ones that these streamers put on.
I mean, his buddy Matthew Vaughn made Argyle last year, which was
I haven't seen that.
Oh my God, one of the worst things you'll ever see. It's such a fiasco.
Wow,
truly. I mean, worth seeing just for the absolute fiasco that it is. It's like a shocking failure. You know what? Sometimes getting a blank check isn't good.
Yes, not great for the creativity.
Have you ever seen The Gentleman, by the way?
No, that's one I haven't seen.
I watched The Gentleman on my flight back from Georgia, actually, on a recent trip. And what a blast that was. That was really good. That's one of my favorite of his, I think. So I just want to shout that out, because I had seen the Netflix show and actually covered it here on the pod, but had not seen the original film. And man, what a blast that was. It was a lot of fun. All right, May 25th, Rick and Morty's back. Do you still watch Rick and Morty by chance?
Oh, wow. No, I fell out of that, but yeah, it had a real moment for me, and I was right into it. But yeah, I haven't seen it for a number of years.
I just watched, caught up on last season recently, and it was pretty good. Not as great as people had said it was, like such a return to form. I thought it was good, but not like, I remember that first season of that show, maybe the first and second season of the show, especially the first one. I was like so knocked out. I'm like, man, this is like some of the best sci-fi I've ever seen. I was like so into it, but it's, they've made so many episodes at this point. All right, May 28th, we have a new comedy coming to FX that has a lot of good buzz. It's called Adults. It's all a binge. It's coming out all at once. And it's described as a new, edgier Friends for the new millennia. So I'm very curious to check this one out. Bunch of 20-somethings living in New York, getting into shenanigans. But apparently it's a darker version of Friends, and the buzz on this is really good.
Good. I'm all for more adult type things.
Indeed. And then this is something I'm very curious about. There's a very popular series of German procedural. It's kind of their version of Slow Horses, but has almost a supernatural or much darker edge to it. It's called Department Q. I think they have made all the books into movies in Germany, and they are huge blockbusters there. The books are very popular. I've read one of the books, and it's very good. And this is from Scott Frank, who's written Logan and Out of Sight, just to name two of his scripts. But he did The Queen's Gambit, of course, which is a huge success on TV. And he's adapted the books into Netflix series. So the first book is adapted into this first, I think it's the first and second book adapted into this first series. And it will continue. Netflix wants to make this thing into like an annual thing. They want this to be like their Slow Horses. So I'm very much looking forward to this. Kelly MacDonald's in it, leader of the ensemble, but all these actors all look really solid. It takes place in Edinburgh. Matthew Good's in it as well. So anyway, very much looking forward to this one. And that's coming out on May 29th.
And it's transferred from a German setting, isn't it? So it's not in German, it's in English.
Correct. Yes, they moved it to England. Correct. All right. And then on May 31st, ending off the month with Jesse Armstrong's first directorial effort as a movie director, a movie called Mountainhead. The trailer has just dropped on HBO Max. Yeah. And this is an all-star cast where these billionaires are together at some getaway where apparently some cataclysm has, like, basically the world is ending and these billionaires are hanging out together. And the cast includes Steve Carell, Jason Schwartzman, Rami Youssef, pretty talented folks here. And of course, I'm very curious to see anything that Armstrong is going to write and direct.
Yeah, I've seen the poster for this. All I've seen is the poster and the title, and it just looks like one of the episodes of Succession. I was like, yes, I'm on board for this. I don't care what it's
Exactly.
about. It sounds cool.
I worry that it may not live up to the hype, but I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, I'm going to watch it no matter what. It's
yeah.
called Mountainhead, and that's May 31st. So that's the month. Some movies to shout out here as well. Another Simple Favor. Anybody who liked Simple Favor, I did like it, but I was talking to Sona about it recently. Can't remember anything that happened in that movie. They've made a
No,
sequel
don't
to
know what
it,
that is.
and that's coming out on Prime Video. The Brutalist is coming to HBO on May
Mm.
16th. If anybody hasn't seen that. And since you're watching at home, you could fast forward through the half-hour intermission, save yourself some time. Although I kind of like the intermission, I have to tell you. Maybe we could talk about that if you catch up with it. And one more thing. Have you watched these Fear Street films on Netflix by chance?
I have not, no.
I tried to watch the first one. I could not get into it, but I know a lot of people loved the series. I could not get into it. Kind of curious for this new one, Fear Street Prom Queen. So apparently a prom set. And I think this is going to continue to be a thing on Netflix where they take another subgenre of horror and they make their own version of it. And like I said, it didn't really work for me, but I know people like that. So just letting everybody know. There's a new movie coming out May 23rd. So yeah, that's the month. Pretty packed.
Yeah, huge. No, there's some interesting things in there, but yeah, hopefully I can keep up with it all.
I'm still looking for, I got to tell you, even with all the things there, the Department Q is probably the thing am most curious to see as a series. And it's a binge, so it's hard to find something that goes week to week. Maybe Murderbot, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to feel all that out.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I mean the way that Andor is released.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me about last season and how you said that it's in 3 episode chunks, and I
Yeah.
never watched it like that. I watched it week to week and I loved
Right.
it. But the way that it's released is very different, and it's 3 episode chunks. I have been watching them all together,
Right.
and it is a different experience.
I agree. And it's interesting with, we'll get into it in just a moment. But yeah, I think it kind of splitting the difference between something that's like an episodic television series and a real movie, because there, of course, is a culmination in this particular set of first 3 episodes. We've jumped ahead a year from where Andor left off. And then, of course, with the next set of 3 episodes, it says another year has gone by. So we're
Yeah.
literally jumping a year each time we move through another set of 3 episodes. So you were very excited about watching Andor. You wanted to discuss this on the podcast. I also a big fan, but I'm just curious as to why Andor worked so much for you and like what your relationship with it.
I don't want to gush too much about it, but I'm really into it at the moment. I just love the first season. We've seen so many Star Wars shows that they haven't been good enough in my opinion. They haven't really fed into my fascination for it. They've been a little childish. They've introduced characters that I'm not really into, and they've gone different directions where I'm just like, is the next one going to be the one? And I didn't know anything about it when I watched it, and it just struck me as an incredible drama. It was my favorite drama TV series of that year, and watching it again, watching the new season. I watched all 3 last night, and I watched the first 3 all together last week, and it's kind of I'm actually happy that we're not going week to week with it, so I don't have to pay as much attention and pull it apart as we tend to do, and I can just let it wash over me. And the writing is just exceptional.
Yeah.
And there is a couple of rough bits, maybe in that first 3 that we can chat about, but every scene is crafted so lovingly. It's directed very well, not too flashy, but just it displays the kind of the writing that I want to see, and the elements where every character has a deeper story that you can see in their face and you can imagine, which is I think is it's prestige TV, and it's kind of rare in some of the things we've been watching lately to see such depth. I think I'm gushing about it already. Yeah, so yeah, that's how I feel about it
Yeah,
at the
I
moment.
saw the But I mean, I agree with everything you said. It was, if not my favorite series of that year, it was definitely competing in the top three for that year for me as well. And I was just so impressed with it. And it did something that I didn't ever expect a Star Wars movie to do, series or any property to do, which was to have this realistic reckoning with the complexities of not just good guy, bad guy, but what does it take to lead a rebellion? And you think about the wear and tear on the rebels, but on the people who work within the Empire as well, right? Which are just doing their jobs to some extent, and we see it even in this particular first few episodes of this season as well. And it's really grappling with that in a way that I didn't expect to ever see in a Star Wars series. But it also did something that I had been begging Star Wars to do, which was with this massive canvas you have this, and you could literally spin off a whole new series of movies if you wanted to, that would just explore one little section of the mythology of Star Wars. And they couldn't get out of their own way. They kept tying back to the Skywalker mythology. They kept tying back to these little Easter eggs, like they trying to fit like that whole Han Solo movie, like trying to fit that movie into like a card game reference in the first Star Wars movie. It was like ridiculous what they were trying to do, when I'm like, this should not be so hard. Like, and The Mandalorian, which I didn't love, did kind of get that right, to be like, yeah, it's just like Lone Wolf and Cub with a guy in a Boba Fett outfit, and which I enjoyed. Right, I liked the most, but of course, even that they kind of ruined, in my opinion, by bringing in all this other mythology, where just keep it simple, man, just keep it simple. And so Andor did both things, where it was like, no, it's just this small scale, story about how these people just kind of ended up blowing up the Death Star and triggering all the events that are to come. But it's such a small story to get to that point, and told at that character level. So I was like really just totally impressed with it. And like you said, the visuals are incredible. They spent a fortune on this show. They revealed that these two seasons cost them over $700 million. And this is the least successful of all the Star Wars series. So they really believed in it. Give Disney credit for that, for investing in this when they probably are definitely losing money on it. But maybe it'll have a long tail. I hope that there's a legacy for this show for sure. And I think it will have that, actually. But I was really looking forward to this, and we could break down. I've only seen the new set. I watched the first episode last night before I went to sleep, after we had our previous conversation, and I watched a few minutes of the next episode. So I'm not fully caught up, but I did fully watch the first three episodes. And just like you, I watched them in a binge. I was like, well, it's like 2.5 hours long. Maybe I can watch like one episode tonight, and I watched it all the way through. and I really enjoyed it. And on the one hand, I agree that it was good to not feel, by the way, I was actually I put down the notepad and I was not taking notes while I was watching, because I figured I just have to kind of get the overall story. But then I agree with that, what you said, that I didn't have to really nitpick any of those details. But at the same time, I kind of felt like I was missing out by not watching it so closely, because like you mentioned, there are some incredible dialogue. There's some incredible character reveals that really could just, you could spend a whole episode of this podcast just talking about one scene from one of those episodes. So it is worthy of that level of breakdown. And that's why I was thinking that maybe I will actually have kind of a episode by episode breakdown that I'll record by myself and I'll include that in part as we have our next conversation next week.
Because I'd be interested in listening to that as well, because I mean, the first thing that came to mind when you said that was the Cyril's mother meeting and having
yes.
a dinner together. I mean, you could talk about that forever. It's just incredible writing and acting.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great detail, but actually I want to start, but I want to dig into that as well. But one thing I want to dig into right away was I was blown away by, and I don't even know why, because it doesn't seem like it's such a complicated thing, the opening shot of this season of television. Just seeing the Death Star in that, the bay of the this freighter they're on, or whatever, the ship that they're on, and just just that pristine white on white aesthetic. There was just something so bold about it in a way, and I couldn't even understand why it really captured my attention so much. But Tony Gilroy was talking, the creator of the show and writer, was talking about the show. He's been doing media, and he mentioned that the opening scene was supposed to be like a performance, like the lights coming on a stage. And he was saying that this phase of the mythology they're telling is the performance phase. So he's tying that into everybody. So when you see Andor now, a different version of Andor a year later, that he is now luring or recruiting, or at least giving confidence to that informant to follow through with this betrayal she's about to do against the Empire, you see that he is now becoming this rebel leader. But that is a performance. It's something he's learning to do. And Gilroy also mentions that the entire empire, like fascism itself, is a performance. It's a performance of order and control. It's the performance of all these things. So the empire itself is continuously making a performance. So I think that is one of the themes here. But I just love that opening visual, and it was just like really just the never expect that see a Star Wars movie or series, I should say, open in that way, and there was just something really bracing about it.
Yeah, I've heard only a couple of his interviews, and he gets very excited talking about it, which is really exciting to hear the
Right.
writer talk about that. And just I hadn't heard him say that, but just the depth of the way that they think about it, it just adds so much to it. And yeah, I can see how Andor is performing these different roles in the show for sure. Yeah, he's a star, a great actor. I haven't seen him in
Yeah.
many things apart from he goes back to
Itumama.
that E2 Mama, which
Right.
I love that movie. I've seen it so many times. Yeah, I can't stop thinking about him in that.
Yeah, I honestly have barely seen him in anything between that and Rogue One. So I'm glad that he's still working. And Andor made him work for a couple more years at least. So I'm
Yeah.
sure he'll get more work from this. And I like, but yeah, this the whole season hits the ground running for me in that interaction he has with I don't even remember her name, but that woman who is his informant, who's helping him steal the ship, and how she's saying, "I had good times here," and it is a really it's what the show does over and over again. It's humanizing these
Mhm.
characters that, like, this woman works for the Empire. So when they blew up the Death Star, like that was the joke of, you've probably heard this joke before, where it's like, when they blew up the Death Star, which was not fully operational, you killed a few generals and then like thousands of maintenance workers and construction workers who were finishing construction on the Death Star, who just worked there. But it's
Yeah,
like,
it's like the Kevin Smith thing, isn't it?
right,
The
exactly.
Clerks thing. And we'll never see her again,
Right,
really,
exactly.
in the series. But you could tell her depth of feeling and how important she is to her story. And in
Right.
just a few short back and forths, you can feel in the way that she doesn't want to look at him because she's told that's what you shouldn't do, and then he's like, no, you've got to be feeling this. You've got to have the heart in this. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just so exciting to see characters like this.
And that how he sees that she might be second guessing herself, and minimally, even if she goes through with this, she might have additional, some feelings that, if there's some blowback that might hurt someone she cares about or whatever. But he's like saying to her, giving her this courage, but also, of course, trying to get his agenda completed,
Mm.
which is that this is something that you can't live with anymore. This is something that, so you're being true to yourself. Finally, this is your real version of yourself that you're in communication with, which is true, but it's such a complex idea that's being wrestled with right out of the gate. This idea that you may have to betray your friends for some greater ideal, and that in the end, these rebel leaders may end up doing some pretty shady things along the way.
Mm.
And I mean, nothing, Luthen, for example, is such an incredible character. And he's somebody who, you have to assume that he is on the opposite side of this journey than Andor is in. Andor is just beginning to become that leader. You see that even when he meets those total nuts on the moon surface later on, that those idiots, he's still trying to like tell them you got to preserve your water. It's like he's trying to give them some kind of direction, but he's like, this is all I can work with. My God, we're really all doomed. But you see that's the one side he's on, but now you see Luthen on the other end of that, where he's now completely covert. He's continuously code switching, and not only that, he is as ruthless as the Empire is at this point, right? He is just he knows that he's not going to. He's probably showing any kind of mercy in the past may very well have bit him in the ass afterwards. So he may have just come around to the realization that he needs to be as ruthless as the Empire is. And you see some of that here again in this particular set of episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. And when Andor is giving that lady a pep talk, it's almost like he's giving it to himself as well.
Absolutely.
So he's acting like
yes.
he's a leader to become a leader, and it works. And oh my God, I love Luthen, and he is becoming a little bit of the light and dark. The dark is starting to show in this series of him, and how Andor doesn't understand the whole implications of what Luthen is taking on.
The probably the weakest of these 3 episodes, but still very entertaining, was this mostly what you saw in episode 2, where he's returned to that moon to meet up with the pilot. After a crash course, literal crash course in flying that fighter, which he was not trained for. I'm not trained for this ship.
And he does pretty well.
I mean, he learned pretty quickly, surprisingly. He apparently didn't even know how to, whether he was thrusting or firing the weapons at one point, and he figured it out soon enough. So
fun, and it's so fun as well. It's not just a serious show. I mean, that was just the heist of the TIE fighter was so enjoyable.
That is something that's really amazing to me about pulling off these life and death situations, but then of course the very entertaining and even slapstick escape with the TIE fighter, but then, and I should say the TIE fighter, but then of course him landing on the planet, and they have these guys have killed his contact. But of course, all the comedy of these dum-dums running around, getting into their own infighting rather than focusing on surviving the night. I do want to learn the rules of that rock, paper, scissors that they were playing, that cross. Yeah. But and he, of course, uses that as a way to escape. For me, that's probably the weakest element of this set of 3, but still very entertaining, by the way.
Same. It just it felt like it went on a bit too long, his situation, and I've talked to a couple of people about it, and they've said a similar thing. But that's, for me, that's the only weak point of this whole set of episodes. And it's fine. It maybe have gone on a few minutes too long, but he's out of there now.
And that's why I was saying that this show, very interestingly, that actually is like a movie, like the arc of a movie and a series, in that very way, that in this episode, that if this wasn't television, there's no way that you would try to frame a whole episode around what happens on the moon. That would just be like one relatively short vignette where they would cut away from, and you'd get what you needed from there and then move on. But they built it out into an entire episode of TV. And then, of course, this blend of tones that somehow the show is able to manage. You have the real threat to Bix on, the sexual threat that she has. Another thing that I kind of rare to see in Star Wars film, for sure, any Star Wars property, and how she's coping and waiting for Andor to return. And of course, the sacrifices that are made there by some of these rebels as well. But then,
it was shocking.
And
it was shocking to see how far they would go, and I wondered how they would present it. And I thought they did it really well. I mean, it was scary. I was and I was on the edge of my seat seeing what was happening to her, and the actor that played the perpetrator. He was the way that he switches from charming to an absolute villain was perfect, and I think the actors, yeah, did it really well and showed respect to the situation, which is shocking to see in a Star Wars film.
And the threat that he poses as well, like the way he tells her, she's like, "Oh, my husband's coming back soon,"
Oh,
and she's
oh,
like, "Does he ever worry about you?" And like that you know that paternalism with a threat in it at the same time, a really interesting power dynamic that they obviously are explaining there. And of course something that you could imagine a certain type of you know male who needs this type of position to potentially sexually
yeah,
exploit somebody
yeah,
else, right? So
yeah. And you think of what the woman could say in that situation to calm him down, and when she says she's got a husband, she thinks that will suppress him, but actually that riles him up a little bit more. It's so scary.
and then another thing that in this show is once again somehow able to ride this line of these different tones is, the character's name I can't remember off the top of my head now, but the mother with what's his name,
Cyril's mother?
Cyril's mother, yeah. So
Yeah.
Cyril and his mother and his new girlfriend. uh
Dedra. Yeah. Oh my God. Shocking. They're living together. I couldn't believe it.
and these are truly monstrous people, and but we are watching this like this like Everybody Loves Raymond or something, and it's this pretty amazing, Everybody Loves Cyril, but it's this pretty crazy situation here, and somehow this sitcom situation works in the context of this show where they are planning to exterminate an entire planet of people.
I've yeah. I've got to confess, I've got a little bit of a strange attraction to Dedra. In fact, I love all the characters in this show. There's not a bad character in it, and yeah, even the evil ones. Maybe not the guy that accosts Bix, but yeah, Cyril is adorable, and you can understand where
Yeah.
he's coming from. And Dedra, as ruthless as she is, she's got this kind of attractive power that she can use.
Do you think Cyril is going to have a turn here to the light side?
I don't. And I don't want to. I've seen the latest three episodes, and I'm not going to give anything away, and it doesn't give anything away. But um, yeah, I don't know. Actually,
I did see him
that
in
could be interesting.
maybe
He's
the
a
fourth.
company man.
Yeah, very much so. But it did seem like he was wrestling. Now I'm out of the context of the first three episodes. In the fourth episode, I think it was that
Yeah.
he did seem to have conflicted feelings there when he goes to that meeting, where I think he's surprised that he's thinking this could be some nefarious meeting, and they're addressing him as being like, "You're an envoy for the for the Empire.
Yeah.
We know this, but take this message back to them." And he seems to kind of respect them in some ways. So I was wondering if there's going to be some kind of uh, way that he can,
I think there is a way that he can turn, and it would be about his relationship with
mhm.
Dedra. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't
But at
imagine
the
Dedra
moment, he
though. I can't imagine Dedra making that turn. No,
no, she would never. Absolutely not.
she's really what she's down for the cause. Even though she seems to be, I do not believe for a second that she's not going to follow through with it. But I do think that she is kind of like, do we really need to kill everybody on the planet to get that, to mind that? They're like, we do. That's just what has to happen. And of course, she's the one who comes up with the plan, going like, we need the kind of terrorists that we can control, so we can control the message.
She's immaculate. I did listen to an interview with her, and she was talking about when she was trying to find the character, she was watching herself on film, and she was um, just gesticulating with her hands a lot. And she was like, that's not, as soon as she saw it, she was like, that's wrong. So what she did was just put her hands behind her back and
Mm-hmm.
be very still with the character, and to use the costume as this pristine thing that shows her power. And she was like, that's it. That's what works.
Nice. I mean, that's usually, not usually, but I think that stillness in general shows a level of power and control, right?
Mm.
You don't need to move so much.
I love
And
her
that,
boss as well. He's just
yes, yeah,
so good. The way that he listens, he's got so much power, but he listens to everybody, and the way that he controls the room is exciting.
he seems so reasonable. And of course, let's wrap things up by talking about the wedding. What did you think about this whole wedding sequence?
Loved it. Disco Ravebot 2000.
Yeah, I love that
So
music, right?
good.
I was, yes.
Oh, the music bangs. Yeah, I want to listen to that again. And Mon Mothma just going. No,
Mhm,
I
yeah.
mean she's an absolute star. We haven't talked about her at all. She was an absolute star of these three episodes, in the way that you can see your mum at a wedding taking shots and just going a bit crazy, but the weight of what she has behind her and what she's thinking about, she's not letting loose. She's just in turmoil. And one of my favorite scenes in the wedding was her husband's speech.
Yeah. Mhm.
We still I don't have a handle on this guy, and I'm not quite sure where he's going to fit, but I think he's going to play a really big part in it. And when he gave that really poignant speech, he's obviously a politician as well. Um, and it cut to the faces of Mon Mothma, and it cut
Mhm,
to
yeah.
perhaps it was Luthen as well, perhaps there was a couple of others in there, and you could see how much they're thinking about, and you could almost see their thoughts, and you could feel the weight of what they're dealing with, and it was just it's so good to see that on in a TV series. I'm just loving it.
That's what I think what elevates Andor so much. You can imagine that you have this duality of this illusion of control and the empire with its pristine fascistic iconography and suits and shiny surfaces, and that being a lie and dismantling that, which of course is what's in the original mythology to start with. And then you counterpoint that to these dodo birds on the surface of the planet who have like no leadership, and they're like, man, how are these people ever going to win? And that somehow that they're going to eventually get their acts together and be able to defeat the empire. And of course that's what you expect from this. What I think elevates the show is when you see the elites who are funding this rebellion, who are endangering themselves, who have this stress on them, and that the show has this empathy towards her as well, for example,
Mm.
and how she needs to keep this facade going. She needs to be the money she has. She is, in a lot of ways, you could look at her as someone who's luxuriating in all this wealth while people are dying, but she's putting herself at risk when she could just be laying back and enjoying her wealth. And
Mm.
instead she's endangering herself and has to keep, again, this idea of performance. She has to keep this performance going all the time, and it's really starting to break her. And I think that speech that her husband gives is so fascinating because it speaks to all of that, the performance that she's giving, but also that his particular life hasn't been exactly what he's expected. It wasn't really what he signed up for. He's really like in the backseat in this relationship.
Mm.
And they talk about him having a gambling problem, and I guess is how he's coping with some of these issues he has. But it is just fascinating that all these characters get rounded out, and the show has the patience to show everybody's different agendas and their own turmoil that they're going through, that everybody is sacrificing so much to try to stand up to the power of the empire. And it's really incredible. And I love that final shot where she's basically sent her lover, her ex-lover, to be executed, and she's just saying, I don't know what you're talking about, but of course she knows exactly what he's talking about. And she's just takes another shot and dances on the dance floor to that, and that's where we end things off for those first three episodes. And it was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, great. Yeah, well, we'll be interested to see if you do some breakdowns of those, because it'll be great to relive the scenes again. And I'm excited for you to finish the next three, because
Yes.
the way that it's like a Blade Runner spy thriller in
Mm-hmm.
these next three
Wow.
is I think you're really going to enjoy it.
Oh, great! I've seen the first episode, which didn't have that blade. I mean, I like them. It did. I did see the Blade Runner connection because they're in this dark city, so that was kind of
Mhm.
cool. But I'm very curious to see, yeah, the setting beyond that. So yeah, I'll probably be watching that tonight. And so next week, everybody, we'll be back, and I'll be doing the breakdown. I think there's a lot more to break down in those first 6 episodes. So I'll be breaking that down, and
Mm.
then Darren and I will be discussing. The next 6. Oh my god, this is overwhelming. This is really
It is.
overwhelming.
It really is. Yeah.
We got to talk about 6 episodes of a show next week. So I'll finish watching this week and then catch up next week, and then same time next week, like midweek. Everybody, stay tuned. We'll have that next conversation.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Victor.
All right, Darren, check out 100 Foot Wave. It's coming back tomorrow. And
Yes.
how about the Surfer? That's coming out this weekend too. Another.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Another.
Yeah, I did. I read a review of it. It said it was very Wake in Fright, which I'm embarrassed to say I haven't seen.
No,
Which
see,
like is a classic '70s Ozploitation.
it is. We
film,
might have to do an Ozploitation series here on the
Yeah.
podcast.
I was. Yeah, I don't think I was born when they all came out, so I've got a bit of catching up to do there. But yeah, Nicolas Cage, the surfer.
All right. Thanks again. I'll talk to you soon.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.